All
Hello,
right.
everyone. Hello,
Hello.
out there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's like we're by ourselves at the moment, as far as we know, but we'll give it a little bit of people a little bit of time to hop on. It's like we have someone there. And then Allison, I'm sure, will be joining us shortly. I think she comes right up to finish an appointment at 11 and then squeaks right into the webinar.
Yep.
So she'll be with us. But she was saying,
You are live.
all right, hello, everyone.
We are live.
So welcome again, first day of October. Here we are, the colleagues here in the Proactive Health Collective of Keene coming together. Some of us here, Allison will be with us because the Abatellis now have a third family member who needs adoring attention. We only have one of them at a time these days, but that's always great. How is everything going, Matt?
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, we're 6 months in to a new member.
I couldn't believe the last time I saw him. He was a little this, and now he's like, he's just.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
He's a little man.
They grow up so fast, right? We all say that, but the truth is the moment is just so valuable.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we can separate the days,
Yeah.
versus having them all just be one in our collective memory. So
Yeah,
it's a great invitation to be present.
Well said. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we were thinking what we would talk about. Now, what I want to say too to everyone is make sure you let us know. You know us. We like to talk about anything related to health. So if you have something that's totally off our subject or whatever, please let us know. Or if you have issues that you, things that about what we're talking about that you want to ask questions about. But I'll introduce myself, let you guys introduce yourselves, and then Allison will probably be hopping on. So I'm Rebecca Becky Montrone. I have a business called Wondrous Roots here in Keene, New Hampshire. I'm a holistic health practitioner with a degree in holistic nutrition, and I'm also an herbalist.
Awesome.
All right, who's next? Dr.
I'll go.
Jean.
I'm Dr. Jean Clerkin, director at Monadnock Natural Health, and we do a little bit of everything over there. My degree is in chiropractic. We focus on really functional nutrition and wellness programs with people. So that's our forte.
Okay.
And good morning. Dr. Matt Abatelli, run a holistic chiropractic office with my wife, Dr. Tisa Abatelli, here in Keene, New Hampshire, which if you've never been is a beautiful, bustling little town.
It's true.
It is.
Okay, good. And joining us shortly will be Allison Millar, licensed acupuncturist here in Keene of Basic Balance. And she'll be on with us very shortly. But she had said, we were like, what do we want to talk about? And she had mentioned masses, tumors, cysts, fibroids, that kind of thing. And there she is as we speak.
Speak of the angel.
Hey, we just introduced you and on you came. It was like, perfect. You were just like,
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing, Allison?
I'm great, thanks. How are you guys doing? Another beautiful fall day.
Yeah, it's gorgeous out there. So I was just starting to introduce the subject that you had brought up. So maybe I'll let you do that since you're here. Masses, tumors, cysts, fibroids. Yeah. And why that stands out to you.
Oh, yeah. I've been seeing more of it lately in my clinic. Sometimes you go through phases. Sometimes it's everyone that week comes in for low back pain. It's sort of weird how it works like that.
Cluster. Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot more of that lately. And Rebecca and I share in the care of a couple patients right now for those things. So I was wanting to learn from Rebecca about how she treats it with herbs and things like that. And it's a really interesting topic. In Chinese medicine, it starts with, there's a couple different ways or patterns that can lead to it. So one would be starting with the digestive system, always the way, right, Dr. Jean? But so eventually, because it's not functioning fully or as effectively as it could be, you start to create what's called dampness. You can see it in the body as a thick tongue coat. You could feel some mucus in the throat. And this dampness, if left unresolved for a long period of time, sort of starts to congeal into what we call phlegm. And that's like long-standing dampness and then that can eventually, if left untreated for a long time, will kind of congeal into masses like tumors or cysts or fibroids. And so you can treat that at that point a little bit differently. The underlying thing would be trying to transform the dampness and at the root, working on the digestive system. But you've really just got to strongly move things in the body because that phlegm can cause blockages. And then it's going to obstruct the flow of everything else. And then the other sort of pattern is just stagnation itself. For whatever reason, the energy is not flowing at a pretty severe level of stagnation in the pelvis area, for example, with fibroids, or in other areas where you could get tumors. So it's interesting to think why that could be and what different therapies you could use to address it. Like breathing into the area, for example, or putting your awareness there could be really helpful. I know with like the SRI work that you do, Dr. Matt, that's really powerful stuff to direct your energy to certain areas. Yeah.
Sure.
And acupuncture, of course. I mean,
yeah. So just going right for it, moving it with little electrical conductors. Yeah.
So, yeah, one of the most interesting classes that I remember taking in my education, and to just preface this, going into it, I really wasn't that excited about the class because I was wanting to learn about health and not really learn about, so much disease. I wanted to learn about how do we, increase health in the body. But the class was pathology. And I'm sure Matt remembers this as well. One of the most interesting classes. Yeah, because what I saw was how the body adapts to and deals with things. And so, it could be like, a pathogen like a parasite or something like that. And the body will create a wall around it, encapsulate it on purpose. And so what we see as the problem is really the solution. The body is attempting to deal with it, toxins and things like that. So when the liver gets backed up, the digestive system, you're not eliminating toxins. When things start getting backed up, the body is forced to adapt in whatever way it can, and it can actually build a wall. And for me, I was like, wow, this is really amazing because it actually reinforces my philosophy and understanding that the body is amazing and smart and is always, everything that we see as a symptom is really an adaptive response. Just kind of look at these things that we hate.
A really good example of that is I recently was working with a woman who had, she was having some real kind of autoimmune sounding issues and everything. And of course, I always get a really thorough history. And she had breast implants like, about 20 years before that. And they were saline, right? So people think, well, they weren't silicone or whatever, so they're not dangerous or whatever. And so I was doing more research into that. And it was exactly part of the only reason I'm mentioning this right now is because it was that exact kind of thing. When you put something into the breast like that, into the body like that, the body responds by putting this envelope around it. The body actually will form scar tissue to keep it out of the body as much as possible. And then the scar tissue itself can become a problem. But that's exactly what Dr. Jean was just talking about, this adaptive response. This isn't supposed to be here. What am I going to do? So I got to do something. That's what I'm going to do.
And then in that particular case, right, so the adaptive response could be more of like a cortex and keep it really insulated. And it can also be not so hard like a cortex. It can actually be kind of soft and have little tendrils and sort of get into the surrounding tissue. So depending on someone's body in that specific case, there could be a sort of spectrum in terms of, I guess, like an invasive pathological response.
Yeah.
I think, it's kind of like the body, like when I'm assessing somebody, they got something like that, I always want to know, okay, well, what might be the underlying thing here? Is it a toxicity? Is it a bug or something like that? But I think it's almost like, kind of like an autoimmune response is you really have an immune system that's, now not functioning optimally. And you can have like these, over responses. And I think, the body's always trying to attempt to deal with it, but obviously sometimes it gets overwhelmed. I mean, we all know that, a cancer, for instance, can take over somebody, but that's more, it's a little different than just the tumor, right? That's encapsulated. And then, they would look at that on films and say, oh yeah, this has got much more wiggly lines. It's a fast moving thing that's more malignant versus like something that's more, encapsulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body will do amazing things, right? Because I think you brought up a great point, Gene. It's the body really adapting to some sort of process when we see these things, right? So there's something going on in there, and the body is innately programmed to deal with it already. And depending on the level of health, it's like one thing that we are certain of is that the body's going through these processes all the time. It's like you brought up cancer, like, well, there's little cancer cells in the system all the time. Body just knows what to do with it, squashes it, and continues on. It's part of life. It knows what to do with that. And in fact, it's all business when it comes to that too. I mean, if there's something in the body that need not be there in a properly functioning system, I mean, that's like, choose like your army wherever on the planet that's like very intolerant. It's like that's your body, it goes right in there. Like, you need not be here, like, bam, like you're gone, cell dissolved. And depending on the level of health and momentum that someone has in their life is going to sort of dictate to the degree with which they're going to be able to either deal with or find themselves in a situation where they need more intensive intervention. And that's one of the things I love about, this group and what it is that we're trying to bring here every, other week, basically, is the idea that being proactive and moving toward a preventative mindset is something that's going to, really serve anybody in this case or others.
Yeah. One of the big problems when I think of cysts and fibroids and things like that, so the tools that I use, one of the big problems with cysts today, every cyst formation, as I've read, is related to iodine deficiency. And again, we've been told, and we know that we're all iodine deficient if we don't supplement. It's one of our big environmental problems right now. People do not get enough iodine. So when people have like fibrocystic breast problems, they call it disease. I don't call it a disease, but fibrocystic breasts, iodine, because why? It takes and deals with the estrogen dominance in the body. It takes the estrogen in the body and it metabolizes it down to a non-cancer causing form. It also locks that form into all of the estrogen receptors throughout the body. So you have that going on, and we're in such an estrogen dominant environment. It's in the pesticides, it's in the plastics, it's in the air we breathe, it's in the sunscreens people put on their bodies. I mean, it is just, we're very, very toxic with what we call organochlorines, which are synthetic estrogens. And so now when you pair that with iodine deficiency, you've got a real mess. And so this is how I deal with ovarian cysts, with the fibrocystic breasts and things like that. And even things like endometriosis and fibroids and things like that. Iodine is a huge part of that. It's not the only thing, but it's super, super important, and it makes a huge difference. So
I love that you brought that up, Becky, because that's one of those, it's like so small, seemingly insignificant, but yet like unbelievably valuable assets that, the environment provides the human body, and that our modern condition, how we're living right now, which is so different than it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago. But this ship hasn't changed. I'm living in we're all living in the same body that people were living in 1,000 years ago, more or less. Maybe we have more toxicity, So really identifying these small things. I love that you brought that up.
And they're very foundational. I mean, iodine deficiency affects so many things. So what's really kind of wonderful about it is if you fix that, you fix a lot of things. It's very, very clearly foundational. Another thing I do with these problems is proteolytic enzymes. And I know I've talked about that before, but again, serrapeptase, which digest inappropriately placed fiber in the body. So we use that for endometriosis. We use that for fibroids. We use it for tumors, even for cancer, that biofilm that's around it. And so at the same time, though, you're cleaning out your arteries, you're making sure your blood isn't too thick. So you're not clotting. So now, you're doing all these wonderful things, any adhesions, any scar tissue in the body or outside, but without damaging any of the great, wonderful tissues. And so that serrapeptase has been studied and shown to be really for people who have endometriosis, which was a problem I had, back in the day, and iodine. Wow, you have so much power to deal with these things, but if you don't know to do it, you won't do it.
Right, got to be in your awareness first. We always
Yeah.
say that's half the healing. Once you have awareness of it, you're already halfway there.
It brings up too, talking about how the body will sort of sequester the bad guys and sort of block them off, right? And it brings up, the standard Western medical approach to cancer treatment and cancer diagnosis. And it's certainly not in my scope of medicine to say that this is the best or not the best thing for you to do. But if your body has sequestered something as a mass in, say, your breast tissue, and now a mammogram is going to compress that really, really hard, that could potentially, sort of pop things or just compromise that boundary that your body has built. And then if you're going into
insult over radiation.
in a biopsy, you would go in. So this area is here in your body. You're going to put a tool in it to get some material to take out and in order to diagnose. But when you're doing that, you could pull those cells all the way through into the healthy cell tissue.
And you've made a hole in it,
Yeah.
If you want to look at it really simply. And then, like Matt was saying about the radiation, and the same thing with chemotherapy. So what we can do is we can see that those things can, look, your tumor mass is shrinking. And yet nobody's taking into consideration how those treatments are empowering the stem cells and making more of the daughter cells, mother cells, which are stem cells, which are much more potent and much more likely to travel throughout the body. So, sometimes we're just looking at, hey, look, this tumor shrunk, but guess what? We just also really, you just really took a hit to your overall health. And you also now have cells that are more dangerous, even though there's fewer of them. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So
And I think along those same, and then that's obviously like sort of like throwing a rock at the hornet's nest, right? There's some of that aspect to it. And then I think something that doesn't get talked enough about during those treatments is the cellular debris that's present in the body after that's done, because the body is starting to, let's just say that the tumor does, shrink and dissolve. So those cells are, they're basically like they're dying, the body. So now there's all the cellular debris, and we don't talk about how to really facilitate that leaving the body. So like what the different things are, like, something as simple as phosphatidylcholine to repair it, to like a butyrate to carry it out, like whatever, like there's all sorts of things you can do for that. But I think that that's something that doesn't get talked about too. So how you can then basically empower the body to be able to carry out a process when you are given such diagnosis, and that you do need all hands on deck, I think is something really important to look at too.
Yeah.
Just want to mention really quick, Allison was talking about, potentially invasive procedure with, mashing the breast tissue and the potential tumor causing a compromise or plugging it. And if you're out there listening and you're concerned, like, well, what, if I don't do my mammograms, what should I do? Another option is a thermo type scan. And that's very non-invasive, and you can see different changes, and it won't necessarily say you do or don't have this or that, but it allows you to look at what's going on physiologically from a heat standpoint. And, that will give you information, or at least, that you may want to look further. That could be.
That's super effective, Gene. I'm so glad you brought that up. And depending on someone, so usually if someone is going through this process, they're in the insurance world, right? So they've got health insurance. And believe it or not, and this is just, this is hearsay. Okay, so let's just say hearsay. But what I've heard from patients is that they can't get the thermography scan, which is easier, more cost effective, and less invasive, like, you know, a millionfold, because the insurance company won't cover it unless they have some sort of pre-existing condition that basically says that, you know, the radiation is going to be a problem. In other words, like they've already had breast cancer, or that there's something else that they've already dealt with, that then they can write like, you know, and order the thermography, when in fact it's so much easier and so much cheaper. And there's probably a lot of more independent offices that are doing that and would be happy to do that for almost nothing.
Yeah, it is not cost prohibitive. It's, you know, maybe, I don't know what it is exactly, but, you know, a couple $100 at best, right? It's not.
It's so easy to do. We use thermography in this office. I'll tell you, it's simple, it's easy, it's cost effective.
By the way, if you're local, Return to Eden, which is Audra Wilson's office.
Restoring Eden.
Restoring Eden, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Audra Wilson. Yeah.
I know that they were offering that service. They were having, you know, the people that do that come in a particular day, so you can check with them and see when they might be doing it.
Just search for them on the web. That's Audra Wilson right here in Gilsum, just out of the Keene, just over the Keene line. And another thing I wanted to say, it's a good time actually to bring this up, because we ended up talking about breast cancer, is it's pink month. And I always dread the pink part of October, because, you know, breast cancer awareness is AstraZeneca. It is how we get people to do all these things and make donations so that we can buy mammograms for people who don't have insurance, and so that we can feed our system. And it's totally the opposite of what it's made out to be. I ask my people, because I never see a doctor. I've never even thought about having a mammogram. I haven't seen a medical doctor since 1997. And I will never get one. I don't care about getting a thermogram, because I don't worry about breast cancer. And I think that's the other thing. I think if a lot of people had things happen, I remember reading a study, and this was a few years ago, where even, you know, not just the ductal, like the 0 stage breast cancer, right? What's that? That's just enough to scare people into getting on your treadmill. And if they had never known they had that ductal carcinoma in situ, which is not a true cancer. Cancer is crap. It infiltrates, right? So if you never knew it was there, whatever, you know, you go on about your life and you'd never know it was there, and it was no big deal. And people getting really overtreated and ruining their lives and ruining their psyche, because you're petrified now that you've got cancer.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's so true. You know, it's like my mother, who's an inspiration in my life, you know, painter, traveler, just kind of I would call her a retirement extraordinaire. You know, she's so full of life. And she tells a very similar story. You know, she remembers her grandmother living to, you know, a very old age, and saying they never worried about this stuff, and they weren't, you know, always looking at these things. And she points toward, you know, just the enjoyment, engagement, and the magic of life, and how that's truly where health comes from. It's not about digging in and getting into all of the minutia of all this stuff. And she's had her health challenges too. And I think so it's that's a real perspective that comes from having not only been through the system, but having chosen something else, and in fact living an incredibly healthy life.
And having the confidence that you're taking care of your health.
Yes, big one.
What the mainstream calls preventive medicine is not about prevention at all. It's early detection so that we can get you on early treatment. That's all it is. It's you know.
I say that all the time. It's not prevention, it's early detection.
Yeah.
Talking about the confidence that you have in taking care of yourself, I watched a really great TED Talk the other day about stress, and the basic findings were that if you are very stressed and you're worried about being stressed because you think it's bad for your health, then the data shows your health will be much more compromised. But if you have stress and you look at it as a positive thing, if you realize that, oh, this is helping me, I've got this energy, and you're not like concerned about it, it's not as damaging. It's not really damaging at all. It's a really cool one. I don't know what the title of it is, but if anyone's interested, I could find out.
I have attending Sue McKinney. And Sue, when I saw you come on, I was like, oh my goodness, we've been so out of touch. But Sue is an amazing scientist and has done a lot of work in Vietnam with Krilla, which is actually a flower. Sue, are you willing to speak? If I, just let me know in the text or whatever, because I can make you able to talk or even come on screen. So let me know what you'd like to do. Just type that into the chat, if you will. And see if she wants to do that. She's, because she says here, hi Becky, good to see you, without mentioning product name. Oh, I did mention the product already, sorry. Careful not to make drug claims in public. We're doing case studies on uterine fibroids to publish a case series and looking for more practitioners to participate. Recently got great uterine fibroid research results with a major US medical university. I'll be in contact with Allison, Jean, and Matt to learn if they have patients who want to address uterine fibroids with a non-hormonal alternative. We're also looking for cases of extreme eczema, if you know of any. And then, okay. So yes,
well,
you
we're
can.
safe there. We're safe there. I mean, a case study is not a drug claim, but it's a great talking point and really important stuff to be bringing forward.
So Sue, I'm going to make you allowed to talk, and if you want to do, whoops, where are you, Sue?
Right there.
Ask to unmute. Are you there?
Welcome, Sue. Thanks for chiming in.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Whoa, there we
Yeah.
go. I can't see myself. Can you see?
Okay, I'm going to make you visible. I didn't know if you really wanted to do that. So I always like to ask people because you never know. Whoops, ask to unmute more. Promote to panelists. Okay. We promoted you to panelists, so we should be able to see you. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I think I have to move, start video. Okay.
There you go.
Hi.
Hey, Sue.
Yeah.
All right. So tell us what's going on.
Well, as you know, I've lived in Vietnam since 1994 and met a remarkable woman scientist there who had developed Krilla, a product out of Crinum latifolium, which had been an herb known in Vietnamese traditional medicine to support both male and female reproductive health. And after trying the product with girlfriends in my Rotary clubs that gave it to their husbands for prostate health, and it worked. And then half of me and my Saigon book club took Krilla for menopause symptoms, and it worked. We invested to expand the plantations and build a facility in Vietnam that could be registered with the FDA to handle the extraction. And recently I moved the final formulation, encapsulation, and bottling to a facility in Oklahoma City. And so we've been on the market as a dietary supplement in the US for 10 years now, with 3 different labels: prostate, menopause, and uterine health. But like you, I'm just addicted to the research. I love to see the research. And we launched some, well, as you know, supplement studies need to be positioned differently than drug studies. So it doesn't matter what you can prove it does if you can't talk about it, if you can't say what you prove it does. So we were able to find some practitioners to work with and do supplement studies for prostate and menopause. And then COVID hit. But we were able to finish our studies. We had some dropouts due to COVID. And we actually conducted the studies at American managed sites in Mexico, because the Mexican people have such little access to healthcare that they're quite willing and eager to be in a clinical trial because it's the only chance they get to see a doctor. So they're compliant, they're eager to participate. And although we had some patients lost to follow-up, we were able to complete both studies on prostate and menopause, and the data is just in for analysis. We hope to have exciting announcements soon.
That's
In the
great, Sue.
in the meantime, we want to, without mentioning any medical conditions, we're pursuing more research on aspects of uterine health. And that's a very exciting area, particularly as some areas of uterine health fall under the FDA classification of an unmet medical need in women's health, and qualify for botanical drug consideration. So that's kind of a long-term goal that we've been working toward a long time.
Wow. I've got to start carrying Krilla again. I don't know what happened there. So I'll email you after this. Yeah.
Sure. We have, I put no money, virtually zero money into sales and marketing for years because I've been supporting the research. And, but recently I was able to bring in some more investment and some strategic people that have been helping me. And we have stores on Amazon. And now we're getting reviews on Amazon that say things we can't say, but the product helps thousands of people. And so now we're turning back to getting more of the sales and marketing. And we've been waiting, building the capacity in Vietnam with expanding the plantations for years. So now we can meet a much higher demand. And so we're about to become more active on social media and reaching out, particularly to practitioners. I love working with practitioners because they're able to, when they look at the research, they can reassure patients that this looks appropriate for you. And the money back guarantees and all of that, so that people have a chance to try an herbal supplement over the period of time. Now, we see remarkable results usually in under 2 weeks, but for a tough case, it can take longer. It can take a month or two to really see solid results.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, no, that's not too bad. And we've got consumers that have been using our product for years now and swear by it. And research that I can announce was done at the University of Illinois, Chicago, to prove that Krilla is not a phytoestrogen. It is not a plant-based estrogen, so safe for women that have had breast cancer or who have to take tamoxifen, and that throws them back into menopause and they've got hot flashes all over again. But Krilla appears to deliver the benefits of estrogen without stimulating any estrogen receptors in the body.
That's really great, Sue. It's just amazing to think of, that there's something so simple, and I imagine, I have no idea what this plant is, but I imagine this like small yellow flower of some kind,
Well, it took me a year to be able to say it, but Crinum latifolium is from the Amaryllidaceae family of lilies. So it was known in traditional medicine, but in traditional medicine, it was kept secret. There are many different subspecies of Crinum latifolium. Some are toxic. Some are benign. They don't have any medicinal effect. And the one that was effective was so rare in the wild that the kings of Vietnam made it illegal for ordinary people to use it. It was not allowed to be published in the monographs of traditional medicine. So nobody ever found out about it until after 1954, the last king of Vietnam abdicated and fled to France. And then word started to leak out. And our doctor actually, when in the mid 80s, when Vietnam was crushing under the Western embargo, the government, the government had a nationwide competition to offer a PhD study outside of Vietnam, and she won, and she was able to go to Eastern Europe and get a PhD in chemistry, and then come back and apply that knowledge and that modern evidence-based research to she wanted to study the top 100 herbs in Vietnam, and she was traveling north to south and going through Hue in the middle, which was the old imperial capital, and at a roadside tea stand, having a cup of tea with the little old lady and saying, well, here's what I'm doing. And the little old lady said, well, I'm not a doctor, but the royal doctors here, they used to have this secret thing and I can show it to you. And then when Dr. Cham realized the potential for Crinum latifolium, and she calls her extraction Krilla, she abandoned the other 99 herbs and spent the last 35 years on this one. And so when
cool.
so she did 15 years of preclinical research, then a study on prostate in 2005. 89% of the men had beneficial results. And then 2 years, I started working with her in 2007. And that's the year the study on uterine health came out. And that was just so remarkable. So Becky and Allison,
this has been going on for a long time, you know, that this has really been going on for a long time. It's been quite a process, hasn't it?
Oh, bringing a new, an old but new herbal supplement to market in the US. I'm a lawyer by background, but this was not my area at all. But
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So Kathy is asking where to get it, and you mentioned you get it on Amazon. But Kathy, I'm going to be getting us another supply from Sue.
Sure.
So
and krillahealth.com.
Yeah, I just looked that
CRILA.
up. I just saw that, and I'll show you that too. Hang on.
Yeah, and we've got some videos. We have a YouTube channel, and but what's just remarkable is when you get comments back from people that you've been able to help. And Becky, Allison, and I, we don't have a prostate. Matt and Jean don't have a uterus. Why does it work on both of us? Because back when we're all zygotes, those are all the same tissues. It's not really that astounding.
Yeah.
You know, and that's so cool. So, you know, we have just to, you know, bring this into a larger picture for a minute. There it is. So that we really have this culture that, I mean, so here's this, it's a beautiful website, by the way, you know, and it's all right there. And this is how we're used to seeing these things, right? So it's like, oh, here you go, and I can check this out. And the truth is there's so much that goes into this stuff, you know, and that if you're going to be looking toward, it's something that we're, you know, bringing to you guys on the first and third Friday of every month, is just how to be proactive about your own health and how to basically take all of the different things that we have out there and be able to use it toward your benefit. Because the truth is that, you know, if you don't take a little initiative, you know, if you don't start becoming what I love to say, just you got to become the CEO of your own health, you know, because we really, right, we outsource our health in the States. You know, we're really good at that, you know.
Self-care.
Yeah.
Right. You know, a lot of other countries, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and a lot of times people just don't know. Allison referred somebody to me that started working with her recently, and I saw her this weekend. I mean, she was in tears because she's like, between you and Allison, I just have so much hope. I just, you know, it's stuff I didn't know. And so sometimes, I mean, it's not really the problem that the person doesn't want to take control of their own health, that doesn't want to take care of themselves, but they don't have the tools. If you don't have the information, and that's why we form groups like this. This is why we do this. This is why I do a radio show. This is why we write, why we meet with people, because it's all about giving people information. We can give you information. You can say, well, okay, but you know, I'm not going to do anything with that information, but you can't do anything with information you don't have. And people are so grateful when they have tools that they did not know existed, and it can change their lives. Even, you know, it's so gratifying, right? Don't you think that's the way we feel as practitioners in this realm of health? Because we see results, we see people's health improve. Things that modern medicine just says, well, you're getting older. I mean, this just happens, you know. Oh, you know.
I wanted to tell you a little more about the studies we did. As we know, men won't talk about the problems, especially about problems down there. So enrollment and getting friends to share information about a prostate supplement is not easy. In our menopause study, our enrollment doubled 1 month because the women already in the study had such good results. They went out and recruited all their girlfriends to come and be in the study. And we ended up with more women in the menopause study than we did men in the prostate study.
Yeah, that's not surprising. You know, it's
Yeah.
not surprising. And I think that's something that we probably see across the board also, you know, in terms of initiative, you know, that we see a lot more women walking into the practice than we do men. And at the same time, you know, we don't get sick alone and we don't heal alone. You know, we do that in community. And it takes, you know, we say all the time, the first ingredient in any healthy community is healthy people.
Ooh,
right.
I like
and
that.
So what you have to do is you have to start taking control of your health, you know, and just know that that will inform the people around you. I mean, our practice focuses on the nervous system. That's master control of everything. Everything we're talking about here today, you know, it all links back to the nervous system. Intervention necessary when necessary. I mean, man, sometimes things are in a bad enough way. And I know that I've utilized all of this. I mean, I haven't taken, you know, this particular supplement, but I've utilized every aspect of what each of the practitioners here has to offer to be able to take my health to the next level. There's no silver bullet, you know, and so we just have to really take a look at, you know, how does that all come together? And then really, like, when we take control of that for ourselves, the effect that has on the people around us. Because when you get healthy, it makes it a lot easier for the people around you to engage in that also. And here's the other thing that I think is really important, because if we're looking, you know, so we look at neurology and how the body is, you know, holds itself, and then how the operating system works. And there's some very important and what I would call sacred differences between the masculine setup and the feminine setup, right? So there's some things that are really important there. One thing that is very masculine, which I think is almost kind of funny, but Jean, I'm sure you can relate, is that we often need to pause. We often need to pause on things. So it's like you get, you know, something is presented to you and it's like, oh, okay, they hear it, it goes in, but they have to pause. Whereas women have more connections up here, literally, and it makes it easier to make a decision right on the bat. So they're much more apt to be like, oh, that sounds great, I'm going to go. Where the guy's going to be like, well, whether that sounds great or not, I'm still going to pause.
Interesting.
Right. And from the commercial standpoint, the industry tells us that the woman in the household tends to make the supplement buying decisions for the household. So we thought that the women would be buying Krilla for prostate for their husbands. It was just the reverse. The men were seeking out a solution on their own. And so the men came and bought directly. Now, the women, on the other hand, think that menopause, they think we just have to suck it up. And they don't realize there are alternatives for them.
You're just
you don't have
getting
to
older.
suck it up. You don't, but you don't have to put up with the symptoms.
No, but that's what
there's help. And then once they find that, they will tell all their girlfriends, oh, I tried this and this worked for me. Give it a try.
I just want to tell people, because this is kind of interesting. Sue and I haven't talked for a long time, but we met, I don't know how many decades, but at a conference.
It was
the
conference at the University of Illinois, Chicago, honoring Dr. Norman Farnsworth, the father of botanical medicine, the researcher that trained so many of the top people.
Yeah.
And he was attending the University of Ole Miss. Mississippi holds a conference every year, ICSB, every normal year, the International Conference on the Science of Botanicals. And whereas Expo West may have 80,000 people in attendance, this conference has grown from 200 to maybe 300 of the top botanical scientists in the world. And you're together for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 or 4 days, and you really get to dig in with people. I would encourage all of you to take a look at it. It's just brain candy for us. And Farnsworth was there, the conference right after that Chicago one. And I remember he told a scientist, you know, go talk to that girl from Vietnam. She's doing something interesting with women's health. And
That's so cool.
You know, that opened a door for me that you wouldn't get any other way. Just, yeah.
I was just looking it up. It took a while to find it, but in Chinese medicine, that's the lily bulb. Do you use the bulb of the flower?
We're using the leaf for this supplement because the plants take a number of years to mature before to get the level of alkaloids, flavonoids you need of the key compounds to make Krilla. It's like when they first came out with ostriches. And ostrich meat is very healthy, but when a breeding pair of ostriches in California cost $2,500, you didn't make hamburger out of them. So now we have enough of the plants that there are other things incorporating the flowers and the bulbs that you'll be seeing from us in the future.
Oh,
But
cool.
the current Krilla is the leaves. And it's an extraction from the leaves because the doctors figure out what you have to do what you have to leave in, what you have to take out. At that time in Vietnam, they did not have the capacity to do DNA sequence testing. And the doctor had told me that she felt that over generations of natural propagation, she said, I've improved this plant. And Mark Blumenthal, the head of the American Botanical Council, helped me find a lab in the US that would do DNA sequence testing that proved that the doctor had developed what we call a cultivar, a variation of the plant that is now patented. Now, when I went to law school, you couldn't patent a plant, and you can't patent a plant that occurs naturally in the wild, but you can patent a variation of a plant. And this is not GMO, this is generations of natural propagation. So the Crinum latifolium that is in Krilla, we're all farm to factory. We grow it all ourselves because nobody else has this variety of the plant.
Mm-hmm. Right. Cool.
Great.
It nourishes yin and moistens the lung. It clears heat and calms the spirit. So makes sense for menopause, nourishing the yin of the body. The yin is sort of what roots down the yang energy, the heat. So as we get older, especially as women with all the blood loss and our resources being depleted, in a go kind of society where there's just a lack of yin, like basically rest and relaxation and sleep to begin with. So the yin's not strong enough to kind of anchor down that yang energy, rises up. So that's kind of a hot flashes. So nourishing the yin energy would make sense. And then at the same time, it's a cold herb, so it clears the heat.
That's great, Allison. I was actually wondering if we could kind of turn the conversation a little bit to some more clinical stuff that maybe you are seeing, because we were talking about at the beginning of this, around tumors and things of that nature, and that you had some really nice things to say right along the lines of what you just said there. Are there certain things that you see, because you said you've been seeing a lot of that lately, are there certain composition or constitutional aspects that you see as threads in this presentation? I mean, could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. One thing that's really interesting, so remember how it kind of starts with the dampness, right? So the nutritional system isn't making the blood, isn't absorbing the nutrients sufficiently from what you're eating. And so what you would expect to see when we have dampness is a really thick tongue coat and maybe some just phlegm, post-nasal drip sort of thing. The person's generally more on the heavier side, but it's really interesting. I don't often see tumors and cysts and uterine fibroids with that presentation. So it could just be that there's just stagnation, and it's simply that. But my hunch, and it was one of my professors in graduate school brought this concept up to me, and it makes a lot of sense, is that because of our sort of the lack of yin in our lifestyle, just the go, 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 and the lack of just pausing, right? And just integrating things, right? And think about integrating, absorbing the nutrients from our food, right? So many times we're doing so many other things while we're eating. Are we actually absorbing what we're doing? And so to compensate for this lack of yin that gets depleted as our resources get depleted, our bodies will actually form phlegm and dampness in the body. It's sort of the body's response but it ends up being pathological. So does that
Very
make
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, I can just say clinically, when someone walks in with these types of presentations, there's been something kind of off in the background for a really long time. You know, this doesn't just happen overnight. These things don't just drop out of the sky, and they're usually pretty tricky to resolve. You know, they've got their, you know, threads and tendrils into a lot of different things. The nervous system is disconnected in areas. They have counter motion and momentum going in different parts of their body. This one's moving this way, this one's moving that way. You know, disconnect here and there, things are walled off. It's really something. So it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah. And another thing that happens is people get, they start to feel like this person I was talking about that Allison and I are working with, they start to feel something's wrong with me. They have something go wrong and they feel like they panic. It's like something, my health is going downhill. I don't know what to do. What's the next shoe that's going to fall? And so when you live in that state of anxiety and fear and everything, that doesn't help build health either. You know, so it's just, that can just add to that kind of spiral and sort of invite more problems. And
we see a cascade of that all the time. Yeah, their cervical neck will first, it will go straight because they go into defense posture because something happened, doesn't matter what it is. Next thing that happens is anxiety takes over. The next thing that happens is autoimmune shows up. Tick, 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 predictable, like it's 110% predictable. And you have to interrupt the cycle. Gene, what do you see around this?
Well, you know, before I forget, I just wanted to mention, you know, Allison, you said you're seeing, you know, more of these things lately. I think doctors around the country are reporting that. I've seen where there's an uptick in, you know, lots of different things, but certainly cancers and stuff returning, like people who have been in remission, their cancers returning, people developing new cancers. I think, Becky, have you heard that as well?
I don't know. I've just been seeing a lot of cancer for quite a while, so I can't say I've seen I don't know. I mean, I deal with a lot of people with cancer, so there's a lot of people with cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, you know, like everything, I think a little bit of a broken record on this. I think it's a combination of things, certainly from a nutritional side, from, you know, a stress and a nerve system side, and from a toxicity side. I think it's, you know, it's a body that's, you know, can amazingly adapt, but, you know, when you start knocking the legs out, each leg that you knock out under it, it becomes less able to adapt. And, you know, I think covering as many bases as you can as far as how you approach that gives you the best chance. So.
Yeah, it's never one thing.
I see, you know, like when we do kinesiology testing, for instance, like for uterine fibroids, I can't think of one that there wasn't a fungal component there. And it's not that, and I think, you know, when we look at different organs in the liver, you tend to have bacterial stuff show up in the thyroid, viral stuff. So I don't know that it's the bug that causes the problem, but the bug that may just be present with the problem there, you know, and the problem could stem from all those things that I previously mentioned.
Right.
So,
it's like a chicken or the egg thing, isn't it? You know, it's like
it is. We automatically assume the bug is the cause, but maybe it's just an effect, really.
It's a perfect habitat in the environment for the bug to thrive.
Yeah. Right. And by the way, whether it's chicken or the egg, if you clean up the habitat, guess what happens? Things get better.
It's difficult for some people to clean up their habitat. We had a guest on talking about pesticides and things out in the farmlands of the United States and stuff on another webinar earlier this week. And it was so interesting because I was talking about, I have several clients in Ohio and they have so many problems with estrogen dominant things such as thyroid issues and well, I mean, iodine deficient things, but a lot of fibroids and female
cancer, prostate cancer.
Yeah, but the very next day I heard from one of my clients in Ohio that I haven't worked with in years, and she's got a cyst on the isthmus part of her thyroid, and I've always told her your problem is iodine deficiency, but she's always freaked out to take, I said, so how much iodine are you getting? She said 250 micrograms. I said, that's nothing. She said, I'm worried about the Hashimoto's, that the iodine is going to worsen. No, you have Hashimoto's because you don't have iodine, but you need the selenium to protect the hydrogen peroxide damage from that, and the glutathione, which protects the capsule of that. So she came right in, but what is happening in Ohio, right? You've got all this farmland. You cannot get away from the runoff of, and it's not just glyphosate anymore. It's these other things. She was mentioning some other really, really toxic pesticides they're using. And we are literally poisoning people. And so people got to be careful about the food they're eating, source your things. And, I love the fact that, the Krilla, the plants are grown there, in Vietnam, and away from all of that. You have to be super careful. It's more serious than I think anybody really realizes.
I was talking to a friend of mine. She's a physician's assistant, and she's just so knowledgeable all about the research, but she's also took like a health coach training course. And she was telling me about a book she read. I think it's called Estrogeneration. Something, if you Google that, I'm sure you'll find it. But it was amazing, the things she was telling me, that the testosterone levels of people now compared to how they were 50 years ago is just not even in the same ballpark. That there's estrogen dominance is just huge. I think that they couldn't even find, they were trying to make a control study with people that didn't have estrogen dominance, and they couldn't do it because they could not find anybody.
Wow.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
Another chicken or the egg piece with that is that then it shows up in the physiology. And what happens is you have masculine posture that is actually holding itself in a feminine posture, which is decreasing the body's ability to actually connect with that in the first place. It's epidemic. Everyone walks in with it. It's really quick to resolve, but man, it's if if you're looking to society to show you the way, like you got to redirect your awareness.
Wow. And hormones, they govern your identity, your moods. So, I mean, it just affects every single level, from your posture to probably our mindsets, our likes, our interests. Yeah.
So how do we hack that? Right. So what are the things that, we have strategies, and I know we're almost out of time here, but something I talk about all the time in our classes that we teach here is I love to bring up what Tony Robbins, who's this life and business coach, a lot of you probably heard of him. He talks about strategy, and he says how strategy is something that works each and every time, all the time. So that's an example of a drug or an herb or, coffee, and anything like that. And then he talks about sustainable strategy, which is the difference is very simple, something that works each and every time, all the time, and liberates energy in the process. Right. So if we could all think for a moment about what some sustainable strategies might be in our lives, what I know from having asked hundreds of people this is that we all say the same things, like eating right, getting enough rest, getting exercise, meditating, and then all, whether yoga, Tai Chi, martial art, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just the snowballs, all those things that we know that we can do for ourselves. So if you want to start hacking this stuff on your own and creating a new level of health within your own physiology, what are those things that you can do for yourself that not only work each and every time, all the time, but liberate energy in the process? And what will happen is, as you get more energy in your system, you'll naturally gravitate toward whatever it is that you need most. Whether it's a supplement that's now in your awareness, whether it's seeking out, a different lifestyle or practitioner or anything like that comes in, you'll naturally know, oh, that's for me, because you have enough energy to be connected with the proper thing, versus looking at it from a low energy point, like, oh, maybe this will work. Oh, maybe that'll work. Oh, maybe this will work. Like, you will not find health there. You have to generate enough energy within yourself to then gravitate toward exactly what it is that you need, because it's out there. And we've heard about some amazing stuff here today.
Wow, that's well said. I think it's a great place to end. Sue, okay. I just want to thank you for hopping on, and that was really wonderful to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's great to meet the others as well. I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Sue. Awesome stuff.
All right. Yeah, great.
Great work.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another session.
Awesome. See you then.
Awesome.
All right,
Have a great
everybody
week,
take
everyone.
care. All right,
Bye.
bye-bye.